Picture this. A group of overdressed, sleep-deprived adults in ill-fitting suits are standing in a Manhattan boardroom that looks like it was designed by a villain from a low-budget Batman reboot. There's a giant table, a skyline view, and at the head of it all sits a man whose entire personality is somehow both gold-plated penthouse and angry LinkedIn post. He leans forward, squints dramatically, and delivers the line that launched 1,000 memes.
You're all fired. All four are fired.
And at least one political career. You're fired. And just like that, someone's dream dissolves into awkward silence. A slow walk to the elevator.
Go home. Go home.
And the quiet realization that they just got humiliated on national television for losing a cupcake competition. This was supposed to be inspiring. Because The Apprentice didn't pitch itself as trash TV. This was aspirational television.
It is a taste of the life you could lead.
A show where sharp minds competed for a life-changing opportunity under the mentorship of a certified business genius. It wasn't drama, it was ambition. It wasn't chaos, it was capitalism with a film crew. At least that's what they told us. But here's what nobody mentioned at the time. This show didn't just entertain millions of people. It built something. An image, a myth, a carefully edited version of what success was supposed to look like. Decisive, loud, and always wearing a tie. And that myth, it didn't stay on television. It ran for president. So today we're asking the question nobody asked loudly enough back in 2004.
Our name has to communicate power, unity, and shock.
Was The Apprentice ever really about business, or was it always just the world's most expensive audition tape? Before The Apprentice became a meme factory and a slow-motion PR disaster, it actually started as something dangerously close to a brilliant idea.
It's flashy. I don't think it represents all of us. And I don't think Trump will particularly love the name.
The mastermind behind it was Mark Burnett, who basically looked at reality TV and thought, what if we replace survival skills with corporate buzzwords and see who breaks first? In 2004, the show launched on NBC, hosted by Donald Trump, back when he was less political figure and more walking luxury brand. And the pitch was irresistible. This wasn't just reality TV. This was aspiration. Contestants competed for a high-paying job, real business opportunities, and the approval of a man whose entire image screamed success. The first season finale pulled in around 28 million viewers.
Phone is ringing. You know who that is.
Which is the kind of number modern TV executives would sacrifice a streaming intern to achieve. It wasn't just popular, it was cultural. Then came the UK version in 2005, led by Alan Sugar and airing on BBC One, where it quickly became a phenomenon in its own right, peaking at nearly 10 million viewers. Same concept, slightly less gold, slightly more sarcasm. And it worked because it tapped into something bigger than entertainment. The early 2000s were obsessed with success, not quiet success, loud, visible, suit and tie success.
It may feel it's a bit of a disadvantage not to have us on their side.
The Apprentice turned business into a performance. Sharp suits, aggressive teamwork, dramatic boardrooms. It made corporate life look like a high-stakes game where confidence mattered more than competence. For a while, it felt real. But in hindsight, that might have been the illusion. Because when business starts looking this cinematic,
We are now really working as a team together, and we are here to win.
it usually means you're not watching reality. You're watching a very well-edited fantasy. At first, the cracks in The Apprentice were easy to ignore. Because when a show is pulling in tens of millions of viewers, nobody really wants to ask inconvenient questions like, wait, why are these future executives arguing over cupcake pricing like it's a hostage negotiation? Or why does every task feel like it was designed by someone who thinks business is just yelling in a suit?
This is really and truly the center of the world for big business.
But slowly, almost quietly, the illusion started to slip. It began with the format itself. Week after week, the same formula repeated like a corporate fever dream. Split into teams, complete a vaguely business-themed challenge, argue aggressively, lose money in increasingly creative ways, and then sit in the boardroom while the host delivers judgment like a medieval king deciding who gets banished from the kingdom. At first, it was tense. Then it became predictable.
You're going to go outside and you're going to sell lemonade.
And eventually, it became parody. Viewers started noticing that success on the show didn't mean being good at business. It meant being good at television. The loudest person won the argument. The most dramatic failure got the most screen time. And the lessons were about as deep as a LinkedIn post that ends with "agree," and then came the real problems. Because behind the glossy edit, the show was quietly becoming a controversy magnet. Reports surfaced about inappropriate behavior on set, allegations of sexism, uncomfortable comments, and a management style that felt less like mentorship and more like public humiliation with better lighting. Former contestants described an environment where women were evaluated not just on performance but on appearance. Bold strategy for a show allegedly about business competence. Meanwhile, in the UK,
Location. You're assigned to finding the location. You need to know where the location is at.
Alan Sugar was cultivating his own brand of chaos, occasionally dropping comments that made the entire country collectively pause and go, did he just say that out loud? The line between blunt northern businessman and guy who absolutely should not have a Twitter account was blurring fast. And then the contestants themselves joined the disaster parade. Season after season,
Difficult being a project manager because people are throwing responsibility in your court when they don't want to take it upon themselves.
candidates were exposed for racist, sexist, or otherwise spectacular social media histories. It became almost a tradition at this point, like a bonus challenge nobody asked for.
Rational right now.
I love that these people are telling me tell them what to do, but then they're like, this is what we're doing.
The BBC eventually admitted their vetting process had, let's say, significant room for improvement, which is a polite way of saying they were basically Googling names after the show had already aired. Social media turned all of this into fuel. Every boardroom meltdown became a meme.
Would you give us free cups if we brought more people in? We need free cups. You will do that? Yeah.
Every firing became a GIF. Hashtags trended, reactions exploded, and The Apprentice slowly transformed from a serious competition into a weekly comedy roast that somehow still took itself completely seriously. The show was becoming a punchline, and it had no idea. The numbers told this story better than any dramatic edit ever could. The American version dropped from 28 million viewers in season 1 to barely 3 million in later celebrity editions. That's not a ratings decline, that's a controlled demolition. But here's where it stops being just a TV story, because researchers later argued that The Apprentice was one of the most effective image-building tools in modern media history, not because it fabricated anything, but because of what it chose to show. Every edit, every dramatic pause, every confident "you're fired" was carefully constructed to project one thing: a decisive, untouchable leader who never second-guessed himself and never lost. It didn't matter if the tasks were absurd. It didn't matter if the decisions were theatrical. What mattered was the image. And over 14 seasons, that image was polished, repeated, and burned into the cultural consciousness of tens of millions of viewers.
There's a lot of attitude. We just wanted to get it done and let them handle the rest of it.
Somewhere between season 1 and season 14, millions of people stopped watching a TV show and started believing in a character. And that character didn't stay on television, which raises the question the show never had to answer during its glossy, ratings-driven peak. What happens when the edit ends and the cameras stop rolling? Turns out the boardroom was just the beginning. So here we are. A show that once sold itself as the ultimate gateway to business success has somehow turned into a glorified group project where nobody really knows what they're doing, but everyone is completely convinced they should be in charge. And at this point, the question isn't even who will win anymore. It's why we're still pretending any of this actually matters.
Straight ahead? Perfect, yeah. And he's pointed a direction and it was the wrong direction.
Because the biggest problem with The Apprentice today isn't just that it declined, it's that the illusion finally stopped working. At its core, the show was never really about business, it was about performance. From day one, success wasn't determined by long-term strategy, actual leadership, or even basic competence. It was about volume, confidence, the ability to say something completely meaningless, but say it like it belongs on a motivational poster in a WeWork lobby. And for a while that worked, because if you cut out hesitation, edit around bad decisions, and layer everything with dramatic music, anyone can look decisive. Anyone can look like they know what they're doing. But over time, that illusion started to fall apart, mostly because the tasks themselves made it impossible to ignore. You've got future business leaders struggling to sell basic products, designing logos that look like they were made in Microsoft Paint, and pitching ideas with the confidence of a TED Talk and the substance of a group chat brainstorm at 2 a.m. And every single time, it plays out exactly the same way. Someone messes up, someone else takes control, everyone starts arguing like it's a courtroom drama, and then they walk into the boardroom acting surprised that consequences exist.
To sell this thing and make a lot of money.
It's the best lemonade you'll ever have.
It stops feeling like a competition. It starts feeling like a ritual. And once you've seen that pattern a few times, you've seen it 100 times. because the show didn't really evolve. It just kept repeating itself until the audience finally caught up. And modern audiences don't just watch anymore. They analyze, clip, meme, and tear things apart in real time. Every awkward pitch becomes a TikTok, every meltdown turns into a reaction video, and every so-called bold business decision gets picked apart within minutes. So the same format that once felt sharp and aspirational now just feels staged, predictable, almost desperate to convince you it still matters. And then there's the elephant in the boardroom, Donald Trump. Because whether the show likes it or not, it's permanently tied to him. What used to feel like escapist television now carries a level of political and cultural baggage that the format was never designed to handle. You can't just go back to selling cupcakes after that. Once the image becomes real-world consequence, the entire show starts to feel heavier.
My feet hurt. I want to go home.
Less like entertainment, and more like something you're supposed to have an opinion about. Even in the UK version, where Alan Sugar is still delivering verdicts like a slightly irritated headmaster, the same problems are impossible to ignore. The candidates feel less like entrepreneurs and more like people who already understand how to perform for the camera. The tasks feel less like business challenges and more like content setups. And the stakes, they don't really feel like stakes anymore, because nothing about it feels real. It feels like a simulation, a place where business is reduced to sound bites, leadership is measured by who can dominate a conversation, and failure isn't something you learn from. It's something you turn into a clip. And once you see that clearly, it's hard to go back, because the boardroom stops feeling intimidating and starts feeling like a set. The candidates stop looking like future executives and start looking like contestants. And the show that once tried to sell you ambition ends up revealing something much simpler. It was never about business. It was always about the performance. And eventually, the audience stopped buying it. And that's the strange legacy of The Apprentice.
$2, $2, $9, $9, $9. All right, forget it.
Because for a brief moment, somewhere between the dramatic boardroom speeches and the early seasons where everything still felt new, it almost worked. It really did. It convinced millions of people that they were watching something meaningful, something aspirational, a window into the world of high-stakes business where sharp decisions, bold leadership, and raw ambition determined your fate. But in reality, it was never a window. It was a mirror, a reflection of what we wanted success to look like: clean, decisive, entertaining, wrapped up in a neat 1-hour episode where the right person gets rewarded, the wrong person gets fired, and everything makes sense by the end credits. Except that's not how business works. And deep down, we knew it.
I've got to go. Bye.
Because the same show that told us success was about leadership also showed us that shouting louder often worked better. The same format that claimed to reward talent quietly elevated spectacle. And the same boardroom that pretended to be a meritocracy often felt like a stage where decisions were made for impact, not accuracy. It wasn't fake, but it also wasn't real. It was something in between, something carefully edited, exaggerated, and polished until it became more myth than reality. And maybe that's why it lasted as long as it did. Because we didn't just watch The Apprentice to learn about business. We watched it to believe that success could be simplified, that ambition could be gamified, that life-changing opportunities came down to one big moment where someone important looked at you and said, "You're hired." But that fantasy doesn't hold up forever. Eventually, the repetition becomes obvious. The cracks become impossible to ignore. And the show that once defined ambition starts to feel like a relic of a time when we were a little more willing to believe in polished illusions.
Lemonade. Thank you so much. Okay.
Oh, look at that.
Thanks, you guys. High five.
So now The Apprentice sits in this weird space, not quite relevant, not entirely gone, just lingering, like a corporate motivational poster that nobody had the heart to take down. And maybe that's the final lesson. Not about business or leadership or even television, but about how easily we confuse confidence with competence, and how long we're willing to watch the performance before we realize it was never real to begin with. So if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of reality TV's most ambitious illusions, make sure to like, subscribe, and let us know which show we should gently escort out of its misery next. Because if there's one thing we've learned, some formats don't need a reboot. They need a boardroom and someone to finally say it: "You're fired."